1. I've had a lot of paranormal experiences throughout my life. As I've gotten older, they've lessened, unless someone very close to me just died, which has happened twice in the last 8 months. I want to know your opinions on the witching hour theory and whether you think ghosts, spirits, and other presences are actually more active in the middle of the night. There's lots of different opinions on when these hours are, but for me it's usually between 3 to 5 a.m.-ish. Now for the actual stories. This is one that just happened at about 4:45 a.m. EST, if that makes any difference. My partner of 4 years' father just died at the end of April, and we were very close. He has schizophrenia and COPD, and I was one of the few that could understand him. I shopped for him, took care of him, visited with him a ton, the whole 9 yards. Anyway. Sometimes my partner will get out of bed and sleep on the couch because he can't sleep. This was one of those nights. I heard what I didn't realize at first, the noise my partner's dad used to make a lot, just a schizophrenia thing of his, I think. Sounds kind of like, but a stuttery sort of sound. Then I heard what I now realize was his voice say something, and it's very hard to understand what he says unless you're concentrating. The initial noise woke me up abruptly, and I sat up and said, "Hey baby, okay?" Then I heard the voice. So no, it wasn't some sort of sleep hallucination. I said, "What was that?" Then heard another unintelligible couple of words. I turned over to where he is usually sleeping and said, "Are you feeling all right?" He's been having a lot of stress and trouble sleeping lately. Then I heard the noise again, this time a little louder, but realized it was coming from the opposite side of the bed my partner sleeps. My heart started racing, and I felt my partner's side of the bed and realized he wasn't there. I shouted for him with no response as my heart started racing, then ran out of the room and found him sleeping on the couch. Then I went out to smoke a cigarette and realized who it probably was once I had a chance to calm down. My second experience, similar to this, was around last January. My ex-boyfriend died last December. He was still in love with me when he died, and was since we were teenagers. I had an abortion with our pregnancy. He was a heroin addict and he had me hooked on it until I left him. Hence the reason for the abortion, although it still haunts me to this day. It haunts me that I'm not sure I made the right decision, and he begged me not to. I was afraid the baby would have addiction issues or be deformed somehow for life or something. Please, no negative comments on this. It's just important to the story. I haven't been an addict since I left him about 5 years ago. Also at the time I had a 2 to 3 month old baby that was with my current partner. My ex's addiction is what killed him. But back to the experience. Again, it was around 4:30 a.m. Same thing, my partner was asleep on the couch and I was unaware. I woke up to the sound of the door opening and I swear to God, I saw a male figure walk into the room. At first I thought it was my partner, they have similar body structure and height. I find something along the lines of, "Hey honey, you alright?" The figure looked at me, and then I realized he was sort of translucent and I couldn't make out his eyes too well. At first I thought maybe it was just because it was dark and I was too tired and said, "You coming back to bed?" He looked towards me again, and then started heading towards my partner's side of the bed, on the path my partner would usually take. Except he was sort of gliding, or walking, if that makes sense. As he grew closer, I realized even more that this was not my partner, and just before he would have gotten into the bed, my heart started racing like it did tonight, and I bolted out of the bedroom crying. Again, I was wide awake. Now for just a couple short side stories as well, related to both. I don't know if anyone's ever had experiences with electronic toys going off randomly, but my son has an activity table. Buttons you can press that make different noises and sing songs and such. Before I had the experience with actually seeing my ex, my son's activity table kept randomly going off in very specifically interesting times. Bonding with my son, being up in the middle of the night by myself, once while taking a shower with my partner. In between the end of the paranormal experiences with my ex and literally the day of my father-in-law's funeral, this never happened again. After my father-in-law's funeral, it happened several times. Then a few times after that in the coming days, then it stopped again. Lately, we had shut it off and put it away, so I don't know if it would have happened again or not. Also, before I saw my ex, I felt hands on my shoulders while I was putting my baby to sleep. I was pushed forward very abruptly in the rocking chair while putting him to sleep a couple times. Then also, in the middle of the night, the fridge door opened and shut very loudly. My partner was asleep in bed. The front door handle jiggled a few times. Both times I checked, and there was no one there. And we live in an upstairs apartment, so I would have seen them getting away. This was also in the middle of the night. My experiences with my ex stopped when I apologized to him about the abortion and explained it, and that I still cared about him and I was sorry for being angry with his mother, who had him hooked on the drugs. Now this just happened with my father-in-law. Also, about 4 years ago, I had a similar experience with seeing my grandpa again about 4:30 a.m. Does anyone else have most of their experiences around this time, and what do you think is the reason for it? A general still of energy, maybe. Please let me know your thoughts. And thank you for listening. 2. Please be aware the following story contains allusions to ritual sacrifice, but no actual confirmation. The day before Father's Day, someone followed my significant other and I almost home. I'm starting to think it was something and that it hasn't left. We were followed for at least 30 minutes. We aren't sure how long it went unnoticed, so it could have been longer. We made some quick decisions and lost the car before we got home. But things have been strange since then. I've seen a shadowy figure in our front yard regularly. I've tried to ignore it, but yesterday something more alarming happened. I had just come back inside and was trying to lock the door when the knob was yanked in the opposite direction. I stared at the door for a moment before locking it successfully. My significant other hadn't seen it, but when I went to tell him, he had a very uncomfortable expression. I asked if he had felt it, and he said he was overwhelmed by the feeling something bad was about to happen. I think it's worth mentioning that while I am Wiccan, he isn't sure how he feels about this kind of thing. I had to go back outside later, and the figure was standing near my significant other's car and appeared to be interacting with my neighbor's outdoor cat that was in our yard. The cat was looking up at it like the figure was communicating with him or something. It was odd. I didn't connect the dots at the time, but around 2 weeks ago, we also found a dead bird with what appeared to be its heart removed beside our front steps. We left the house with the plan to bury it when we returned home, but when we got back it was gone. We brushed it off as one of the neighborhood cats at the time, but now that I think about it, that doesn't make sense. The hole where the heart was removed was almost a perfect circle, and there was no blood anywhere. When it was gone, there was no evidence it had ever been there at all. We do seem to have a positive entity protecting the house. I see that occasionally inside, and have since moving in. It was startling at first, but not negative. There was also an incident where a house fire was stopped due to our malfunctioning microwave unplugging itself. If this hadn't happened, there would have been a fire. I firmly believe our good entity did this. I also believe it's preventing this bad one from coming inside the house. I've cleansed the house with sage, burned a white candle for purifying, and made protective pouches for my significant other and I. I don't want to put salt down, as our animals inside or the neighborhood cats outside could eat it and overdose on the sodium. But I'm going to try the brick dust when I get home. Does anyone know what this could be? What else can I do to protect myself and my family? Maybe I'm being paranoid, but I don't like any of this, and I'm scared. 3. I need some help identifying whatever the hell is here with me. I just got back from a week-long vacation last night, and the same activity from the house I was staying in is going on at my apartment. I apologize in advance for any incoherence in what I say because I haven't gotten much sleep in the last week. The house we stayed in was gorgeous, and since my entire extended family was staying there, 18 people, it was also absolutely massive. It was split into 2 parts, the old side of the house, roughly just a basement studio and 3 bedrooms upstairs, and the newer side. I'm not going to go into much detail about the newer side as no paranormal activity took place there, but it was a gorgeous house. I shared a room with my girlfriend, and since we were the last to arrive, we got the worst room in the house. Not only did we get the smallest room in the house, it was about 10 feet by 10 feet, It was also on the old side of the house, directly in front of the basement stairs. As I'd been driving for 6 hours that day, I was pretty tired, so I said hello to everyone and quickly got into bed to go to sleep. It was around 11 p.m. when my girlfriend and I got into bed. She is lucky in the sense that she can fall asleep just about anywhere in 5 minutes, so she was asleep within seconds. I had a weird, uneasy feeling in my chest, not necessarily a scary feeling, just that annoying alert feeling you get when you feel like something is watching you. To help ease myself, I hopped right down into a YouTube rabbit hole. About an hour into my journey, I could tell that my girlfriend was having a nightmare, so I put my hand on her arm to gently wake her up. But as soon as I touched her, she bolted awake screaming and mumbled, "The ghost," and immediately went back to sleep. I just started to get tired, and safe to say I was sufficiently creeped out at this point, so back down the rabbit hole I went. About 2 hours went by when my girlfriend woke up screaming again, saying the footsteps are close, and passed out immediately. I decided I'm not going to sleep that night and went right back to YouTube. Another hour passes and I see my girlfriend sit up in bed, but she was still asleep. She moved so she was sitting on the edge of the bed and started having a conversation with the corner of the room. She eventually laid back down, but not before I was absolutely terrified. Activity died down after the first night, usually just creaks in the floor or knocks on the wall and door. The only other standout event besides movement around the room happened on the second to last night, when something sat down on the edge of my bed. My first thought was that my cat jumped on the bed, but I remembered I wasn't at my apartment, and sat up just in time to see the indentation lift up on the edge of the bed. It couldn't have been my girlfriend, as she was on the opposite side of the bed, and nowhere near where the indentation happened. Also, the bed I was staying in was as firm as a rock, so it was challenging to push that far down into it. Fast forward, one more sleepless night, and I'm on my way home. After a long day of driving, I got back and settled down with some Netflix. My girlfriend had plans to go hang out with her friends, so she was out for most of the night. I thought I'd finally get a break from the spooky stuff when my dog and cat both started tracking something around my apartment. The way their heads were moving, whatever they saw was moving fast. Now, I've seen them track bugs before, but neither of them really focus on it too much. They usually just huff and ignore it, but this was different. Poppy, my dog, started growling when whatever it was moved into the corner of the room. My cat, Anna, jumped up right next to me on the couch while Poppy growled at the corner and started to slowly back up towards me. After a full week of crap like this, I wasn't even scared anymore, just pissed off and tired, because it likes to keep me from falling asleep. Poppy and Anna both track the thing moving out of the corner towards us, so she starts barking like crazy. After I got her to stop barking, I heard a growl come from the center of the room. It was pretty high-pitched, like a small dog or a girl. Judging by where my pets were tracking, it looked like it was very short, very fast, and could jump up on the table in counters. I stood up, stared in its general direction, and said, "Please leave." I got a huge wave of chills and got goosebumps in places I didn't know I could get goosebumps. But I said it again much louder and more stern this time while opening my front door to let it out. Whatever it was got really upset. It didn't do anything, but I could feel a lot of anger. My pets tracked it moving towards the door, so I thought I was in the clear. About 2 minutes later, my dog starts barking at the corner of the room where the door is, while my cat is on full alert, staring at the same place. At this point, I just give up and hope it leaves me alone since it hasn't been violent yet, just annoying. Poppy eventually fell asleep at my feet, and Anna had run into the other room, occasionally poking her head at the door to look in and immediately spring back into the room. I just gave up on dealing with it at this point. I put my earbuds in to block out the knocks on the walls and watch some YouTube. I decided to stay up until my girlfriend got back to let her know what was happening, but whatever it was took this as an opportunity to mess with me. I was laying on my couch and kept feeling something poking me every 5 minutes, not hard, just constant pokes in my arms and legs and feet. After this went on for a while, it pulled up in my nostrils. Again, I just ignored it because I learned it just gets worse if I engage with it. Whenever something like this would happen, I could feel the apartment get much colder, despite my thermostat saying it was 72 degrees. After hours of knocking, poking, pulling, and the occasional arm brush, my girlfriend finally got home. The second she got through the door, I could tell whatever it was left, as I had no uneasy feeling, and there were no more weird noises. So I had one of the most restful nights I've had in over a week. I don't know if it's gone for good or if it will come back tonight, but I will post an update tomorrow if anything happens. Any help in this would be greatly appreciated, as I don't know how to handle it. Other than the growl and the short but overwhelming sense of anger, it hasn't been violent or disturbing, just really annoying. Any help on how to identify or safely communicate with it would be greatly appreciated. Edit. It has only been a couple of hours since I posted this, but activity has been a little higher since. For starters, I am running a fever out of the blue. My temp was at 98.8 this morning. I checked because I had a fever the previous night, and it has risen again to 101.3 in only 15 minutes. On top of this, the knocking and rusting noises around the apartment have started up again. I feel absolutely drained. It's hard to even keep my eyes open, despite a good night's rest yesterday. The main point of this post is for advice and help on how to deal with this thing. I went to the doctors and am COVID-free. It turns out a previous sinus infection I thought I got rid of came back with a vengeance, which caused my fever and other symptoms. Luckily, I have a different medication which should clear it up within a week. Also, luckily, there's been no new activity since a couple of nights ago. Not even an unsettling feeling. My girlfriend and I have been home pretty consistently in the past day, and things seem to only pick up when I'm home alone at the apartment. Normally I wouldn't be worried, but I have to take the next couple of days off of work, and my girlfriend is leaving for a beach trip the next couple of days. She went to the doctor too, just in case, and they said she's all clear. 4. The story starts back in July, when my wife and I moved out of my dad's penthouse condo and moved to a lower-level floor in the same building. The building is relatively new, 2009. We moved out because of the issues with my dad's second wife. I mention this because there was a lot of negative energy with her. Not long after moving in, we would hear odd bangs here and there. For example, our closet has those metal sliding doors, and every now and then, they would make these popping sounds. At times, we would be sitting on the couch watching TV and hear a sound at the door, like a knock or a bang. I just told my wife it could be a neighbor outside, and as soon as I said that, a louder bang happened right in front of me behind the TV. Could not explain that. But when we moved in, a family friend who lives in the building came by and said she feels that there is peace in the condo. Another incident that happened was in August. My wife and I were taking our car and bikes and drove almost an hour away from home. When we got to our destination, our car keys were not with us. We have a Tesla, so the fob just needs to be present. We drove back home, could not find the keys anywhere. Our car is parked in an underground garage. We found the keys broken between a speed bump on the driveway on the ground level. Now the kicker, in my opinion, my wife was told to pray and light incense sticks. She did that for a few days, and on the first day she even prayed on me. I asked her to. The next day, my bowel was purging. I had pretty bad stomach issues, and my wife and I always eat the same thing. I heard somewhere that this could mean there is an evil eye on me. I'm not really sure, but since then all noises have stopped. The closets are silent, no banging noise at random areas. During the times of the noises, my wife and I would weirdly for weeks wake up between 3:30 and 4:30 a.m. Sometimes just her, sometimes me, a few times both of us. No noise, no anything. We would just be fully awake at that time. Also, I never felt scared. I lost my mom at 23, I'm 30 now. I keep thinking or saying it's my mom watching over me, but I'm not sure anymore. Maybe I was saying it to make myself feel better. But last night something happened. I have these 2 accent lights, and they are controlled by a radio frequency remote. Of course, these lights have been finicky and turn on randomly due to other interferences. But when they do turn on, they both do at the same time. Sometimes when we will be sitting there with both lights on, and they will both change to randomly different colors. My wife and I have been going through some tough times the last few days with my dad in and out of hospital. We had a fight in regards to my mom and my stepmom, and I was protecting my mom in the call. In not too many words, I made it clear to my dad that I knew that my stepmom was the other woman all the years my mom was alive, and I was standing up for my late mom. I also told my wife yesterday evening that I would refer to my own mom as Ma. Ma as in an elder woman in Indian culture, not Ma as in Southern. We set the lights to a nice pinkish hue in the early evening, and my wife said out loud, "Ma, if everything is going to be okay for us, please turn green at any time tonight." I laughed out loud and said, "Yeah, if you're here, become green." We had our dinner and were watching Surviving Death Episode 4, which is about signs from the dead. Around 9:20, my wife reached to her right and faced one of the light sticks, and it turned green right in front of her. I turned and freaked, and only that one light changed. Then in the background we hear the guy in the Netflix show say the words, "and he saw his deceased mom." Then the room got super cold. "I got intense goosebumps and my wife's legs and feet were really cold," she said. Then 30 seconds later our heating unit turned on because of the coldness of the room. My mom's favorite color is green. My wife and I fought a lot of peace today and we both slept so well. My uncle also passed away in 2016, and I said out loud that if he wants to come, he can be red and be the other light. Since then, on occasions, the right light would turn red, and the left light would turn green. They even came on special occasions. For example, my uncle was into football, so on the Super Bowl, the light became red. He was also a stock trader, so on great days in the market, the light becomes red. And there would come a day before my dad and I would get into a fight or argument or something was about to happen. It got to the point where my wife would say, "Switch sides if you are there." It happened the next day. She also would say, "Fine, no more green, I want yellow." A few days later, the light turned on green during the day, and I told her, "Look, Mom is here," and she said, "I asked for yet." And as soon as she could finish her sentence, the light turned yellow. Since April, it has only happened twice more, but between January 12th and April, the colors would change to red and or green every few days. It doesn't have interference anymore, and changes randomly. 5. This all started when I was a small child. My family and I moved to the UK when I was 4 years old, and the house we moved to was a fairly normal, semi-detached home, nothing more. However, as a little kid, I started getting a weird cold feeling in our kitchen, and I was terrified to be there alone. My mother would wake up in scratches after working in the kitchen after 11 p.m. specifically. My parents got weird bruises in their sleep after going to bed on or later than 11 p.m., after being in the kitchen or living room. Fast forward to my teenage years. I would feel like someone is looking at me, and sometimes in the corner of my eye. I could see like a head pop around the corner from the kitchen into the living room, and curtains would have weird human-like shapes behind them, but when you moved the curtain, nothing was there. My first strongest paranormal experience. The scariest experience was when I was 16. My mother was out of the country, so in the house, it was just my father, dog, cat, and I. Keep in mind, I went to bed at 9:30 a.m. due to having exams the next morning, so I said goodnight to my dad, took my cat into the bedroom with me, and I closed my door. Soon after, around 10:30 p.m., my dad opened my door and said he's going to bed, and I saw him go into his room, and all the lights were turned off. About 30 minutes later, I heard someone walk downstairs and then immediately turn around to walk upstairs again. Strange thing was, that person, when they walked up the stairs, they immediately walked down and up again, repeating this 3 times. They were very heavy-footed. No more than 5 minutes, I heard unbelievable banging in the kitchen downstairs, the same sounds of how someone cooks in the kitchen during the day, and are rushing to cook a meal. I could hear all the drawers in the kitchen being opened and banged closed. I could hear some plates moving and some glasses. It sounded like my mother and I when we prepare a meal for the family. But it was nearly midnight, around 11:50-ish, or somewhere around that time. I kept telling myself, this was my father. I didn't automatically believe it was something spiritual or supernatural. I walked out of my bedroom to go ask my dad if he could be mindful of my sleep and the fact that I have an exam tomorrow, only to see it's pitch black everywhere, especially downstairs, and it was quiet. So I went back into my bedroom and felt slightly uncomfortable, scared a burglar may be downstairs. I feel like this was my biggest mistake. The banging and moving around continued for about 20-ish minutes, before I felt someone going up the stairs again and walking heavily down the hallway and stopping outside my bedroom door. This made me feel this sudden sense of impending doom and danger, weirdly. I've never been like this, and never had this feeling. I felt like I couldn't breathe and that it was out of my control, and only fear struck my body. I couldn't move. I was sitting up, staring at the door. When this thing walked away from my bedroom door, I could suddenly breathe, and felt a wave of calmness instead. But this person walked down the stairs again and continued the banging. Underneath my door, I could see a light turn on, so I decided to brave it and have a look. I went to peek through the rails of the stairs and saw the floor lamp in the living room turn off in front of me, and I ran into my room, feeling as if something was chasing after me, and I felt something brush my shoulder in a sharp manner. Safe to say, I didn't sleep all night, and my dad came into my room at 6 a.m. quite angry, telling me off for running around all night, which made me freeze and confirm the fact it wasn't my dad. When I told him all that happened, I froze, and he said he thought it was me running up and down the stairs, and he also said something stopped outside his door and he could hear 3 slight knocks. We went downstairs and the entire kitchen was normal. Only drawers were opened and a few spoons and forks on the floor. All of our doors were locked and none of our outside cameras caught any movement. Only a cat outside on the street, and that's it. To this day, we cannot explain this. My mother refuses to be downstairs by herself sometimes. Very recently, she heard 3 loud knocks in our front window. When she checked our camera live, no one was there, and she said she saw a head pop out of the kitchen in the corner of her eye. So she went upstairs, but she felt the need to run up because she felt a very angry, dangerous energy behind her. This doesn't always happen, and there are many other things that happen in my house I'll gladly share if someone wants. We felt positive energies in our house and childlike spirits. It feels like people or things come here when they're lonely to pass over. Twice, something negative, which feels like the same supernatural being. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 241. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like, subscribe, and comment. And if you'd be so good as to share the video with all your friends and family, that is very helpful too. Right, where are we? This is Friday, isn't it? Okay, we're doing, had a little surprise stream the other night. Some of you were there, some of you weren't. It was very late, so some people missed it. And we were testing out the kinks in not the super fancy camera I'm saving up to buy, but I did discover it's entirely possible to use your smartphone as a webcam, and a semi-decent webcam. Got the kinks worked out. Was a bit jittery at first, but I changed the settings and it seemed to work better after that. So we'll use that for streams occasionally. Sometimes I just won't feel like having a camera on me, but we'll use that for the gaming streams and such, not the recording streams, but gaming streams and such until I get my super fancy camera, where I can then use that for streams and recording video. So we'll put that through its paces on Saturday night, hopefully. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.